Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Namo Buddhaya, and best wishes for all of us. Welcome to our presentation starting STTB1. Today, we are going to talk about Streptococcus suis as Zoonosis Agent. Next slide. Here is the list of STDs B1 member. Next slide.
Hello there, my name is Putu with 3 last digit of student ID number is 021. The respiratory and digestive tracts of pigs are colonized by the encapsulated gram-positive bacterium Streptococcus suis. It is to blame for significant monetary losses in the swine sector. Additionally, this pathogen is a global zoonotic agent under development. Clinical indication of Streptococcus suis infection include serious infections such as meningitis, arthritis, endocarditis, pneumonia, and septicemia in pigs and humans. Septic shock brought by severe Streptococcus suis infection can quickly result in death. During human outbreaks in China in 1998 and 2005, fatal incidents were noted. Streptococcus suis septic shocks are distinct from those brought by ordinary streptococci. Approximately 1,600 cases of Streptococcus suis infection in humans have been documented in more than 30 countries or regions since the pathogen discovery. The percentage of Streptococcus suis infection in people is likely underestimated by this number because many cases are likely misdiagnosed. Understanding the biology of Streptococcus suis infection is crucial to finding possible compound for efficient vaccine because Streptococcus suis can infect both people and pigs. Next slide.
Okay, let me introduce myself first. My name is Devaline Ramadhan with 3 last number 016. Based on the background information, several problems formulations can be formulated such as: what is general overview of Streptococcus suis? What is the pathology of Streptococcus suis? What is the epidemiology of Streptococcus suis? What are the identifications, clinical signs, and diagnosis of Streptococcus suis? How is the treatment and prevention of clinical cases that are caused by Streptococcus suis? What is the zoonotic outbreak disease related to Streptococcus suis? And the objective of this research consists of: first, general objectives to learn and understand better about Streptococcus suis as a zoonosis agent and its effect on clinical case. And specific objectives is to describe the general overview of Streptococcus suis, to describe the pathology of Streptococcus suis, to describe the epidemiology of Streptococcus suis, to understand the identification, clinical signs, and diagnosis of Streptococcus suis, to understand about treatment and prevention of clinical cases that are caused by Streptococcus suis, to describe the zoonotic outbreak that is related to Streptococcus suis. Next page. The benefits of the writing student project is to expand the knowledge and insight of students in the Faculty of Medicine Udayana University concerned about the Streptococcus suis as a zoonosis agent. The contents of this project can also be used as a reference to describe the general information of Streptococcus suis. Next page.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Refferty, and my last 3-digit number of my student ID 003. Today I'm going to talk about overview of Streptococcus suis. Basically, Streptococcus suis is a prevalent disease in pig and swine populations all over the world, and human infection can occur in people who have had intimate contact with ill animals or infected pork products. Streptococcus suis may cause a variety of infections in humans, including meningitis, septicemia, pneumonia, endocarditis, and arthritis. In addition, Streptococcus suis is a coccoid gram-positive facultative anaerobe that can be found as single cells, in pairs, or in short chains. The device serotypes has been discovered based on capsular polysaccharides. And because it is most typically connected with infections in pigs and people, serotype 2 is the most commonly reported serotype globally. Streptococcus suis lives in the upper respiratory system, namely the tonsils and nasal cavities, as well as the genital and alimentary tracts of pigs. So, Streptococcus suis type 2 colonizes the palatine tonsils of both sick and healthy pigs and is frequently transmitted via nasal or oral routes. That's all from me. Next slide.
My name is Arin with the last digit number of student ID is 002. I will explain about the pathology of S. suis. The nasopharynx serves as the main entry point for invasive infection. S. suis must penetrate the mucus layer secreted by respiratory tract epithelial cells. It can adhere to respiratory epithelial cells and element of the ECM after penetrating. Invading the epithelial cells after adhesion causes S. suis to spread into the host bloodstream. S. suis use several methods to get around the host immune system. The BBB can be broken by meningitis, causing strain, but BMECS cannot be broken. Meningitis develop as a result of the lost production of pro-inflammatory cytokines brought on this bacteria infection. That's all for me. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Thank you for the time given to me. Now I'm going to explain about the epidemiology of Streptococcus suis. But before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Sienny and the last 3 digits of my student number is 004. The first human case of Streptococcus suis infection was found in Denmark, 1968. Since then, there has been more than 1,600 cases worldwide. From the 35 known serotypes of Streptococcus suis, serotype 2 shows the highest prevalence. An outbreak of Streptococcus suis infection occurred in Vietnam in 2009 and also in China in 1998 and 2005. Next slide. This is the epidemiology of Streptococcus suis infection in Bali from 2014 to 2017, and it was found that there were more than 40 cases in total. The most frequent were in Denpasar with 28 cases, followed by Batung with 5 cases, Gianyar with 4 cases, Karangasem, Tabanan, and Buleleng with 2 cases, and lastly Klungkung with 1 case. There was no recorded case of Streptococcus suis infection in both Bangli and Jembrana. That's all from me. Thank you. Next slide.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. My name is Krisnaditya Dwi Raharja with 3 last digits of student ID number 014. Streptococcus suis is a gram-positive bacteria that appears as single or short chains with circle shape. It grows better on anaerobic broth than in the aerobic condition. To identify the Streptococcus suis, we can use either the biochemical method, commercial system, and agglutination method. For the biochemical test, it contains Streptococcus suis if there is no growth in 6.5% sodium chloride, negative Voges-Presker test, and there is production of acid in trehalose and salicin broths. Next slide. So the detection can be done by immunomagnetic separation and PCR. The immunomagnetic separation is quite expensive and rarely used. The PCR method for the identification is targeting 16 rRNA gene, the glutamate dehydrogenase gene, fibronectin binding protein gene or CPS2G gene for the Streptococcus serotype 2, which is the most virulent and widely distributed. That's all, and thank you. Next slide.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Kedendra Prabhava Putra with 3 last digits of my student ID number is 022. In this occasion, I would like to explain about the clinical signs of the Streptococcus suis infections in humans. Okay, so most of the Streptococcus suis infections in humans shows meningitis as its clinical manifestations. The typical meningeal signs of the Streptococcus suis infections usually start with several classic symptoms such as fever, nausea, and vomiting. It's also followed with some neurological signs such as balance disorder, dizziness, and limb trembling. Sepsis was the second most common clinical manifestations. Other less common clinical manifestations include endocarditis, arthritis, pneumonia, peritonitis, and spondylolisthesis. Prolapse of the Streptococcus suis meningitis occur with the various clinical manifestations. After a temporary clinical status improvement, patients commonly develop deafness that affect either one or both ears. Beside the deafness, the development of the vestibular dysfunctions is also common among the survivors. The vestibular dysfunctions occur more often in cases with severe to complete hearing loss. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you so much. Next slide.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Putu Harum Rahcetag with 3 last digit of student ID is 018. So now I will explain about diagnosis. Streptococcus suis can cause many disorders such as sepsis, enteritis, arthritis, meningitis, endocarditis, spondylodiscitis, endophthalmitis, uveitis, and peritonitis. Among all these disorders, meningitis is the most and frequently occurring in the world. The diagnosis of meningitis can be made by CSF or cerebrospinal fluid examination with blood culture that will give an overview of a chain of pyemolysis bacterial colonies. Next slide.
Okay, now we'll talk about the treatment of Streptococcus suis infection. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is IG Pasta with my 3 last digit ID number 02H. Now let's start. From the journal that the writer reviewed, it is found that the Streptococcus suis is kind of multi-drugs resistant organism. Because of that, there are only certain effective antibiotics, which is this kind of antibiotics is rare and expensive. The study showed that there are some antibiotics that have a high percentage of resistance to Streptococcus suis. They are penicillin G, gentamicin, enrofloxacin, and norfloxacin. But they also showed some kind of antibiotics from the beta-lactam class and fluoroquinolone class have effectiveness in eliminating Streptococcus suis. Following the drug development, there is some synergistic combination that are effective to eliminate Streptococcus suis. There are ampicillin plus apramycin and thiamulin plus pictonomycin. From the graph that shown in the right side, it can be concluded this kind of synergistic combination can inhibit Streptococcus suis from many strains. That's all from me. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Rahel Juliana Manurung, with the last digit of my student ID 030. So now I'm going to tell about the preventions of Streptococcus suis. So vaccination is being the most promising methods to prevent Streptococcus suis infections because of global prohibitions on the prophylactic use of antimicrobials in animal industries. And so far, there's no vaccine that has been widely used and proven effective. In fact, only autologous vaccines are applied in the field, although the outcomes are inconsistent. Developing a vaccination that is universally cross-protective is extremely difficult because Streptococcus suis has a great variety of genetics. Studies have shown that clinical Streptococcus suis has less genetic diversity than the non-clinical strains, which suggests that a global vaccination to control clinical infections of Streptococcus suis is possible. The common vaccination target, as it is present in the majority of clinical strains that possess a capsule, is the capsular polysaccharides or CPS. And it should be noted that to target various serotypes of vaccination should pick a variety of polysaccharides epitopes, and a population strain substitutions brought on by vaccination may be expected. In addition to the diversity and what has been said, CPS loci are typically hotspot for recombinations, and as a result, CPS switching across strains occurs. That's all for me. Thank you, and next slide.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Lishana Benkokusuma with the last digit of student ID is 025. Zoonotic outbreak. The gram-positive bacterium Streptococcus suis is an emerging zoonotic agent causing fatal infections in humans, which asymptomatically colonize nearly all pigs. Globally, Serotype 2, ST1 isolates, have been described as mostly responsible for Streptococcus suis human infection, especially in South America, Europe, Japan, Southeast Asia, and China. Since the first outbreak in 1998, the incidence of Streptococcus suis infections has been markedly increasing. More than 1,500 cases of human infections have been reported in 34 nations between 2002 and 2013. In July 2005, the largest outbreak of human Suis infection occurred in Sichuan, China. That's all from me. Thank you, and next slide.
Hello everyone, my name is Ananda Aulia with 3 last digits of my student ID as 015. At this moment, I'm going to tell you about the conclusion and recommendation of the student project. The conclusion are Streptococcus suis is a human infection that occurs when people have had an intimate contact with ill animals or infected products. The nasopharynx serves as the main entry point for invasive infection. Streptococcus suis cases rose significantly during the past few years, especially in Southeast Asia. Infection of Streptococcus suis in humans can cause many disorders, but the most common is meningitis. Streptococcus suis has a great variety of genetics which affect the suitability of developing vaccines. Nevertheless, vaccination is now the most important way to prevent Streptococcus suis infection. Gram-positive bacterium Streptococcus suis is an emerging zoonotic that causing fatal infection in humans which asymptomatically colonize in pigs. The recommendation of this student project is due to the time constraint in carrying out this research. The data collected was not comprehensive, limited knowledge, and limited research restricted the result of the student project. After reading the student project, the author recommended to understand the student project, the readers need to expand the research to include more extensive topic about Streptococcus suis and zoonotic outbreaks. Thus, readers can easily understand the morphology, identification, pathology, epidemiology, clinical sign diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of Streptococcus suis and zoonotic outbreaks.
Okay, that's all from our presentation. We hope that you enjoyed our presentation. We are sorry if we have said something wrong or unpleasant. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to close this with Parama Sandi. Om Sandi 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 Om. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Namo Buddhaya, and best wishes for all of us.